I wasn't planning to ever talk about this, but if you're still here, maybe you know what it feels like to be betrayed. I always thought enemy fire would be the thing that killed me, not the soft click of a bedroom door. The night it all started, I'd just come off a 16-hour rotation at Fort Stedman's urban combat range, sweat still drying on my undershirt, boots caked with red dust. Our neighborhood was asleep, porch lights blinking like distant beacons. I slipped my key into the lock, the same way I'd cleared countless compound doors overseas, slow inhale thumb, ready on the safety of instincts I couldn't switch off. Inside the house smelled wrong. Lavender candle, lit burning low. Eleanor's company scent, never for me. Living room curtains drawn tight. The television glowed mute blue on the wall Netflix menu frozen on a romantic comedy thumbnail. Eleanor hated rom-coms. I dropped my rucksack beside the couch and listened. No footsteps. No Caleb's laughter drifting from the hallway. He was back at college anyway. Just that candle hiss and my pulse drumming behind my temples. L. I called, voice steady like range commands. Silence. Then a whisper upstairs, too low to make out, but enough to tighten every muscle I owned. I climbed the steps, each tread deliberate, a stalking pattern I'd practiced in Kandahar mud huts. Light leaked under our bedroom door. Another whisper male this time. I pushed the door open. Eleanor stood at the foot of the bed-silk robe, half-tied phone pressed to her ear. On screen, a video call. The man on the other end lounged in some upscale office collar, unbuttoned smile rehearsed. Gavin Marshall, restaurant owner, local celebrity guy I'd shaken hands with exactly twice at charity galas. Eleanor's eyes shot wide, emerald shaken with panic, but she wasn't fast enough to kill the call. I heard Gavin's voice clear as a sniper shot through cheap Wi-Fi. Insurance hits in 30 days, babe. Stone says, after the accident, we wire the funds to the Caymans. You'll be free of your war hero for good. The word accident ricocheted around my skull. She stabbed her thumb at the screen to hang up, but I'd already heard more than any man should about his own murder. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. I saw sweat bead at her hairline, watched the pulse hammer in her throat, took in the robe she'd only ever worn on our anniversary. The silence between us was louder than mortar fire. She recovered first. Danny, it's not what it sounds like. What does $2 million double indemnity sound like, L? My voice came out. Calm. Radio check. Calm, the kind of calm that plans. And wise Stone, my old teammate, suddenly your problem solver. Her shoulders sagged, but the steel in her stare surprised me. Because you were never here. Because the Army owns more of you than I ever did. Gavin listens. Gavin sees me. He sees a payout, I said, stepping closer, lowering my tone like I would with a skittish insurgent ready to blow. And you handed him the detonator. She tried tears, the glistening kind that used to melt me after long deployments, but they slid off me like tracer rounds off armor. I noticed her phone still recording, maybe for leverage later, maybe habit. Didn't matter. I plucked it from her hand. You think you're some femme fatale mastermind? I said, scrolling, reading months of texts, meetups, wire transfers, forged signatures in my name. But you forgot the first rule of Black Ops L. Always assume the target's listening. She opened her mouth, maybe to beg, maybe to lie better, but my own phone buzzed in my pocket, an unknown number. I answered. Caleb's voice, broken, gasping. Dad. Elevator shaft. Stone then, Siren's chaos line dead. My world narrowed to a single point of burning focus. Stone had touched my boy. Gavin had orchestrated it. Eleanor had signed off. I looked at the woman I'd once promised, forever saw nothing but a mission objective. You chose this, I whispered. Now I choose the rules. Downstairs, I grabbed the spare keys to Ronnie Miller's place, my oldest combat brother, the only man who'd never ask why the hell we were burying bodies at midnight if I said we had to. As I stepped past the lavender candle, I snuffed it with 2 fingers. Game on. Ronnie didn't ask questions. He opened the door in gym shorts and an old Ranger's tee, took one look at my face and stepped aside. Tell me how deep, he said, handing me a glass of something brown and burning. I didn't drink it. Eleanor, Gavin, and Stone, I said. They came for Caleb. That was all he needed. Ronnie had been with me through Fallujah Haditha, the jungle rot of black site assignments no one would ever confirm. He knew the tone in my voice, dead, flat-controlled rage, the kind that didn't burn hot, just steady. Surgical. Final. I'll call Jake, he said, already walking to the safe behind his bookshelf. We'll need surveillance. Digital backtrace. If they left a footprint, we'll find it. We won't wait for footprints. I laid Eleanor's phone on the table, scrolling through her messages. They already moved on Caleb. I'm finishing this before they know I've started. At the hospital, Caleb lay unconscious. Tubes in his arms, gauze wrapped tight around his head. Sarah, his therapist, the one I used to call soft, stood like stone next to his bed. Her hands shook. Her eyes didn't. They pushed him, she said. Stone met him for coffee. Said he wanted to apologize. Then they were on the roof. Cameras cut out. Police say it looks like a suicide attempt. I stared at her. And you believe that her jaw tightened? I believe your son wouldn't jump. Not after everything he's come through. Not after we've built this life. I reached out and gripped her shoulder. He's going to wake up. And when he does, we'll be ready. I turned to leave. She didn't stop me. We started with Gavin. Jake found him first. Beach house in Malibu. New car, new girl. Fake smile on social media, living my best life, captioned under a picture of him sipping champagne on a boat bought with my blood money. We watched for 3 days, learned his routines. He ran every morning at 6, no security, just earbuds and ego. The 4th morning, I was waiting at the halfway mark. He slowed when he saw me, tried to pass it off with a smirk. Danny? Jesus, you look like you walked out of a war zone. I did, I said, and I brought it with me. I moved, fast, grabbed his arm, spun him into the alley behind the pier, shoved him against the wall. Say her name, I growled. Say Eleanor's name. What the hell is this? You're insane, man, I punched him. Once. Just enough to break his nose and the lie trying to crawl out of his mouth. You came for my son, I said. You planned it. You filmed it. You thought I wouldn't find out. He spat blood. You don't have proof. I pulled the USB from my pocket, the one with Eleanor's video call, the payment logs, the forged policy. Proof enough for the cops, the press, and the insurance board. He froze. A smart man would beg. Gavin tried to bargain. I can pay you. Double whatever she promised. I can disappear. You already did, I said, and stepped back. Ronnie was waiting at the end of the alley. He held a phone in one hand, recording, and a badge in the other. Borrowed, not his, but it would get Gavin the attention he deserved. LAPD's anonymous tip line is about to get real busy, Ronnie muttered, as Gavin was cuffed by the time the sun came up. One down. Eleanor was next. She knew. The second Gavin's arrest hit the news, she ran. Rented a car, tried crossing into Canada. Jake flagged her at the border. She was in a motel in Burlington when I walked in. No makeup, no silk robe. Just a woman stripped down to the bones of her own choices. You ruined everything, she hissed. No, I said I survived everything. There's a difference. She reached for her purse, maybe for a phone, maybe for something dumber. But I had her wrist before she moved an inch. You tried to erase me, I said, my voice low. You used my son. You played victim while planning murder. You don't get to cry now. Danny, please. I let her go. I'm not here to kill you, Eleanor. You're going to live in prison, where every mirror reminds you what you became. I left her sobbing on the floor, the sound hollow and meaningless. 2 down. But Stone was different. He was once my brother. We bled together, starved together, survived shit most men wouldn't believe. But somewhere between the war and the money he changed, he'd chosen Eleanor, chosen betrayal. When I found him, he was waiting. No running. Just sitting on a bench, overlooking the Hudson River. You came, he said, without looking up. Caleb's alive, I said. But you're dead to me. He nodded slowly. I deserve worse. I sat beside him. Why, I thought she loved me, he whispered. Thought after the things we did we deserved. Something. A way out. You had it, I said. Brotherhood, purpose, you sold it all. He turned to me, then eyes hollow. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Good, I said, because I didn't bring any. I handed him the file copies of everything. Let him read in silence. When he was done, he didn't speak. Go quietly, I told him. Talk, and your deal disappears. He walked into prison 2 days later. Voluntarily. Maximum security. No name. No visitors. 3 down. But the story didn't end there. Because what came next wasn't revenge. It was purpose. The house we bought sat at the edge of a quiet neighborhood, the kind with kids riding bikes till sunset, and neighbors who waved, but never asked questions. Caleb and Sarah made it home. I helped with the wiring installed. The cameras laid the sensor grids myself. No contractors, no blind spots. Sarah said I was paranoid. Maybe. But paranoia kept us breathing. Caleb was healing scars, fading body stronger. But some nights, I'd still hear him wake with a start. Silent. Cold sweat. I never asked what he saw. I already knew. I'd seen it too. That's when we started the foundation. It began with a girl, 13 years old, beaten by her stepfather. Her mother knew, looked the other way. CPS did nothing. The police shrugged. No physical evidence. She ran. We found her sleeping behind a grocery store dumpster. Maria. We got her help. A counselor. A place to stay. School placement. Witness protection. Because, yeah, the stepfather came looking. Ronnie paid him a visit. After that, he didn't come looking again. Maria stayed with us that winter. She cried when we gave her her own bed. Just a mattress, clean sheets, and a locked door that only she could open. I'll never forget her voice that night. Is it okay if I sleep with the light on? Of course it was. That moment, more than any bullet I'd dodged or enemy I'd outmaneuvered, burned itself into my soul. Because for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a soldier. I felt like something better. We made it official. The Hayes Foundation. At first, it was just me, Caleb, Sarah, and Ronnie. Then Jake joined. Then some of our old crew. And then strangers, donors, volunteers, lawyers who believed in second chances. We weren't just offering protection. We were building lifelines. 1 kid became 10. 10 became 100. They came to us broken, scared, abandoned. And we gave them what the system couldn't safety with teeth. You mess with a child in our network, we don't send lawyers, we send ghosts. Quiet men. Fast cars. Eyes in the trees. A whisper in the dark that makes predators vanish. That's what we built. So when Maria walked into my house that night, 17 now, taller, proud, her acceptance letter to MIT clutched in both hands, I almost couldn't breathe. I got in, she said. Engineering. Full ride. I didn't cry, but something inside me cracked. I owe it all to you, she whispered. No, I said. You did this. We just cleared the way. That dinner was one of the few times I felt peace. Sarah laughed with Maria. Caleb grilled chicken. The porch lights hummed low and warm. I leaned back in my chair and let the quiet settle. Then my phone buzzed. Jake. Stone requested a meeting. Sarah caught the look in my eye. Trouble. Just the past, I said. I didn't tell them the truth. Not yet. That night, when everyone else was asleep, I drove. Out past the city, where the air got thin and the roads got narrow. Stone was waiting at a federal transfer facility. He looked thinner, older. But those eyes, they still burned. You said it was over, I told him through the glass. He nodded slowly. It is. For us. But someone else picked up where we left off. I frowned. What do you mean, new players? New money. They found the files. The warehouse logs. Someone leaked them. That chill down my spine, the one I thought I'd buried it, came back sharp and fast. Who, I asked. He leaned forward. They're coming after the ones you saved. Then he stood, turned, and walked away. Didn't look back. I drove home in silence. No music. No news. Just a growing storm inside my chest. It wasn't over. The past never stays buried. It just waits. The next morning, I didn't sit at my desk. Didn't open my email. I stood in front of the whiteboard in the war room, Sharpie in hand, drawing lines, circling names, crossing out ghosts. Caleb walked in, coffee in one hand, eyes still bleary. Something happened, he said flatly. Stone's alive, I replied. He blinked, confused. We knew that? No. Alive, Caleb. Awake. Talking. Someone's dug up the warehouse files. His jaw clenched. I saw the flicker in his eyes, the same rage, the same weight. Who, he asked? Don't know yet, but they're targeting the kids. Caleb took a deep breath like he was trying to steady something inside him. Maria. Not yet, but she'll be on the list. That was all it took. We were locked in. Jake arrived with fresh files. Ronnie followed 10 minutes later. No banter this time. No stories about the old days. Just the grim silence of men who knew what war smelled like. Jake tapped a name on the screen. Diana Lee. 17. Came to us 2 years ago. Father ran a trafficking ring. She testified. He hung himself in jail. Her file's been accessed. I didn't ask how Jake knew. He'd built our digital perimeter like a fortress firewalls nested inside VPNs, buried beneath dark web misdirection. If someone pierced it, they were serious. We move her? I said. Already in motion, Jake replied. Sarah's coordinating a temporary transfer with one of the safe houses. Good. I turned back to the board. That's when the phone rang. Not the office line. Not the foundation hotline. My personal cell. The one only 5 people had the number to. I answered. At first, nothing. Just breathing. Then a voice. Hello, Mr. Hayes. Male. Calm. No accent. But too calm. I see your little family's grown, the voice continued. So many little birds in your nest. Must be hard keeping them all safe. I didn't respond. Let him talk. But here's the problem. You made enemies, Danny. And enemies breed in silence. What do you want? I asked finally. Oh, it's not about what I want. It's about what you owe. Click. The line went dead. I stood there, phone still to my ear pulse, like thunder in my temples. Ronnie stepped forward. Was that? Yeah, I muttered. They're coming. Later that night, after we'd set new protocols and mapped evacuation drills, I stood alone outside the foundation building. The air was thick with storm clouds, that heavy humming pressure before something breaks. Sarah stepped beside me, slipped her hand into mine. "You okay?" she asked. I didn't answer. She squeezed my fingers. "We built this, Danny, and we'll protect it." She meant every word. I felt it in her grip. But still. I looked out at the dark horizon and whispered more to myself than to her. They're going to try to finish what Eleanor started. Because deep down, I knew something she didn't. This wasn't just some group trying to hurt us. This was revenge. Not mine this time, but someone else's. And it was coming fast. The rain hit just after midnight, sharp cold needles slicing through the air like they carried a message. I didn't sleep. None of us did. Ronnie was back at HQ reviewing old files. Caleb was in the surveillance room tracking external cameras and motion sensors from all 23 safe houses. Jake was underground in the digital trenches tracing back the call. Sarah stayed with Maria and the other girls in the downtown shelter, her presence the only thing keeping them calm. I drove. Sometimes, when I couldn't think, I drove the city's edges through the industrial zones, past silent warehouses and broken fences where ghosts still whispered. That night, I ended up in front of an old building we'd used years ago, one of our first safe houses, boarded up now. But the memories were still inside. I walked around the back just to make sure. That's when I saw it, spray painted on the rear wall, just beneath the broken security light. The past never forgets. Black letters, clean strokes, fresh paint. They were mocking me. I stood there in the rain, breathing in the scent of rot and rust, and for a moment I was back in that warehouse again. Eleanor tied to the chair, Gavin spitting blood, Stone screaming, my fists aching from truths I forced out of them. I hadn't just survived that night. I had become something else, and whoever this was, they wanted to drag me back to that man. Fine, let them try. Back at HQ, Caleb looked up as I walked in, soaked and silent. They left a message, I said, tagging one of our old safe houses. Jake appeared in the doorway. I traced the call, he said. Sort of. Spoofed through 10 nodes, most of them darknet reroutes. But I caught a bounce through Warsaw, Eastern Europe. Caleb frowned. Someone with military-grade routing, Jake added. Not freelance. My chest tightened. Contractors. Jake nodded grimly. The kind we used to run into overseas. Ronnie joined us, then holding a printout. This was slipped under the front door an hour ago. I took the paper. It was a photo of Maria at school, zoomed from across the street. On the back, written in jagged black marker, "She talks, she dies." Caleb's fist slammed into the wall, rattling the frames. I felt nothing. No panic, no fear. Just that familiar coldness, returning precise, surgical, unstoppable. We're not running, I said. Sarah's voice crackled through the intercom. You need to see this. We rushed downstairs to the shelter feed. Sarah stood next to Maria, shielding her, as a car idled outside. Black SUV, tinted windows. I've activated lockdown, Sarah said. Girls are in the panic room. I nodded. We're coming. Wait. Maria's voice came through, steady, clear. Don't let them scare me away from this. That girl, 17, barely healed from the hell she came out of, stood in front of the cameras like a soldier. She reminded me of Caleb when he was younger, of myself before the rage, and in that moment, something inside me shifted. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about legacy. It was about what we protected, And who would carry it forward when we were gone? I leaned into the mic. You're safe, Maria. We're not letting anyone hurt you. She nodded, once then disappeared into the shelter. I turned to the team. Ronnie, Jake, Caleb. Gear up. No more shadows. No more waiting. If they wanted to bring the war to us, then we'd show them exactly who they picked a fight with. We hit the ground running. Within an hour, every member of our team was mobilized. HQ lit up like it hadn't in years. Screens humming servers, crunching tactical gear laid out across tables like a silent declaration of war. The warehouse ghosts were awake again, and this time they were on our side. Jake isolated a pattern from the SUV's license plate. Fake, of course, but he followed movement patterns, traffic cams, backtraced heat signatures on satellite feeds until we had a location, an old meat processing plant on the outskirts of town, abandoned for over a decade. No utilities, no surveillance, no reason for anyone to be there, unless they were planning something they didn't want the world to see. Looks like a staging point, Jake said. Thermal shows at least 5 signatures inside. Armed, I asked. Almost definitely. Then we hit them hard. Fast. No time for finesse. Ronnie smiled at that. Just like the old days. Caleb suited up quieter than usual. He'd brought his own toys, drones, sonic emitters, flash jammers. Tools built not for revenge, but protection. Tools meant to blind, disorient, subdue. His way, not mine. We rolled out just before dawn. Rain still clinging to the air like the city itself was trying to wash away the coming violence. I drove lead. My mind wasn't on the mission details, I already knew them cold. My thoughts were on Maria. On the look in her eyes when she stood up and said she wouldn't run. That's when I realized this wasn't just about saving her. It was about proving something, to myself, that I could still be the man she believed I was. We breached just after 5 a.m., flashbangs first. Then Jake's backdoor override on their security grid, then silence, the kind that screams in your ears. We moved in, room by room, breath held weapons up. First tango down in the hallway. Armed. Military stance. Quick trained. Second one in the stairwell. Caleb's drone disoriented him long enough for Ronnie to drop him with a trank. Third and fourth corner office. Waiting. Expecting us. They fired first. I didn't hesitate. 2 shots. Center mass. Another to the leg of the last man as he tried to run. Then I saw him. The 5th man. Standing calmly in the back of the warehouse floor. Black jacket. Shaved head. The face of a man who knew things, ugly things, and wasn't afraid of them. He smiled when he saw me. "Mr. Hayes," he said. Finally. "Who are you?" I asked. He raised his hand slowly. "No weapon, no fear. I'm just the messenger. They wanted you to know the past is still breathing, that not everyone from that night died." I stepped closer. "You were there, I was nearby. I saw what you did to them, what you became." And I thought, he chuckled, "This is a man worth watching. You've been following me for years, watching you build your little empire of redemption. You think you've cleaned your hands, Hayes. Think your foundation buys forgiveness." I didn't answer. He stepped forward into the faint light spilling from a broken window. "There's another tape," he said. "From that night. A different angle. One that shows everything." I froze. "What do you want?" He grinned wider. "It's not what I want. It's what the people behind me want. And they're very interested in seeing what a man like you does. When the world sees who he really is." He dropped something. A USB stick. Then he raised his arms again, as if daring me to shoot. I didn't. Not because I didn't want to, but because I needed answers, more than I needed revenge. I grabbed the drive, tied him up. We burned the place down when we left after scrubbing everything and making sure there were no surprises left behind, just ashes and bad memories. Back at HQ, I slid the USB into an air-gapped terminal. Caleb stood behind me, Jake and Ronnie flanking the screen. The video loaded. It was the warehouse, that night, but not the footage we'd seen before. This one showed everything. My face, their screams, the moment Stone broke, the second I made the choice to cross a line and never come back. I watched the whole thing, every second, every breath, and I said nothing. When it ended, the room was quiet. Then Caleb spoke, voice low. "You knew this existed?" "No. What are you going to do?" I looked at my son, at the man he'd become, the future we'd built, and I said, "We bury it. Not to hide, but to protect what matters now. Because some truths don't serve justice. They only feed monsters. This wasn't about me anymore. It was about them. Maria, Caleb. The next kid walking through fire and praying someone reaches in to pull them out. So that night, we locked the drive in our black vault, and we moved forward. But I knew deep down I'd just been given a warning. The past wasn't done with me yet. And next time, it might not knock. 1 week later, the man from the warehouse was found dead in his holding cell. Cause of death, apparent suicide. No witnesses, no cameras, no questions asked. Jake called it cleaning house. Ronnie called it a message. Caleb just looked at me across the table and said, "You didn't order that, did you?" I didn't answer, because I didn't have to. There are forces in the shadows that act before you ask, sometimes for you, sometimes despite you. But the result is always the same. Loose ends get cut. We carried on, quietly, efficiently. Another client, another life in danger. Another line crossed carefully. Maria started classes at MIT. She emailed me once a week, excited about classes, overwhelmed by the pace, grateful. Her success felt like the only thing in this world I couldn't ruin. Caleb took on more responsibility at the firm Security Upgrades cyber defense strategy. He was sharper than I ever was, smarter, and more dangerous because he knew where my line had been drawn and exactly how far past it I'd gone. Sarah's counseling center opened 2 months later. The ribbon cutting made the local news. Nobody asked about her past. Nobody mentioned my name, just how it should be. And then one night, as I sat alone on the back porch with a glass of bourbon in my hand, a familiar vibration buzzed in my pocket. A new message. No name, no number. It read, "I know what you did, and I'm coming." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Let the wind carry the threat into the night. Then I stood, finished my drink, and walked inside. Because I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. I'd been forged in betrayal, sculpted by vengeance, and refined by purpose. There was nothing left to break. Nothing left to take. Just one more truth I've learned from all this. Justice doesn't sleep. And neither do I. So let them come. I'm ready. I always will be. As I locked the door behind me, I paused. On the mantel above the fireplace sat 3 objects. A photo of Caleb and Sarah on their wedding day. Joyful, unburdened. A folded American flag. In a triangular case, my service, my past. And beside it, a small wooden carving Maria had made years ago. It was crude, but honest, a shield with 2 hands holding up a third. Underneath, she had scratched the words, "Protect those who can't protect themselves." That was the mission now. Not vengeance, not redemption, just purpose. I reached up, touched the carving, and breathed in the silence of a house that finally felt like a home. Somewhere out there, someone was plotting, hurting, threatening the innocent. But I wouldn't chase them in anger anymore. I would wait in the dark. I would prepare. I would protect. Because the world doesn't need more revenge. It needs guardians. And I've become one. Danny Hayes. The man they thought they broke wasn't broken. He'd just begun. In my situation, I don't know if what I did was morally right, but I still want to tell you everything, so maybe you'll understand why I did it. And if you were in my place, what would you have done? I'd really like to know. Maybe we can learn from each other. Thank you for listening.